Today, you need to be so dialed in from day one. If you want to make your living at this, if this isn't just going to be a hobby for you, if you want to make a living, you need to understand who you are and who you're trying to attract. And you need to be able to ramp it up pretty quickly, because whether you're doing an online business, whether you're doing something that's a brick and mortar, whatever it is, there's going to be costs associated with making that business successful that if you don't get it right, you're going to lose a lot of money relatively quickly.
Hey, fitness fans, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. I'm your host, Eric Malzone, and I'm hailing from Whitefish, Montana. And we're finally getting some spring weather. It's sunny outside, but that is not what this episode is about. This episode is about John Heagle. So John has been in the fitness industry for over 30 years, and man, he's done it all. So he has owned gyms, he's owned franchises. He's been an advertising director for Weider Publications. So that's Muscle and Fitness, Flex Magazine, Men's Health, all of those things. And now through his company, GymBuilder, he consults gym owners and facility owners with getting through the tough times and building their business. And he has an absolute wealth of knowledge. And we'll get into more about what this episode really hones in on. But first, I want you to consider taking some action, please. So if you're listening to this and you're a fitness professional, you probably have heard that we have a closed Facebook group. It's called the Modern Fitness Professional, and it's by application only. And if you are accepted in, you'll be part of a group of 2,000 fitness professionals from all over the world. And if you're looking for that one place, because your time is limited, to stay on top of all the good stuff that's happening within the industry, from science and technology, business development, digital marketing, Q&A with the experts, which we're about to launch soon, this is your spot. It's the most efficient use of your time, and we promise to keep you updated on all the things that are important. So let's talk about John Heagle. So with all of this experience, right, 30 years, and 30 years in a relatively young industry is a long time. The one thing I extracted from this is that some things have changed, some things haven't, right? The basics and fundamentals of business have not changed. You still have to know who your target clientele is, what they need, how to communicate that to them, all that stuff. Stuff that has changed is our ability to really hone in on a very, very specific person through our marketing and advertising. So the lesson from this is find your niche and then go even deeper into that niche. So niche down, then do it again. That would be what I took away from it, but there's much more. So listen to it twice, listen to it 3 times. But here it is, episode number 46 with John Heagle. Hey, fitness fans, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and today I have the extreme pleasure of talking to John Heagle. So, John, before I kind of let you loose on our listeners today, I want to give some points of I'm really excited because it's rare that we get to talk to people who have 30 plus years of experience in the industry on the business side. Not too many people share what you're willing to share with us today. So, thank you for coming on, and maybe you can we could start just with telling listeners who you are, your story, how you got into things, and where you've gone now. And that's a lot to cover,
Yeah.
Do your best.
No, I appreciate it, Eric. It's a pleasure to be on. I've gone back, and one of the things we didn't discuss is I have listened to a bunch of your other podcasts. You've had some great guests, and I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to it. I'm going to make sure I keep up with everything moving forward. As you said, I got into it a long time ago. I was the lifter. I was powerlifting. I've been a football player. Loved being in the gym. I was your stereotypical meathead. Loved working out, and came across a gym that was for sale. Bought it for the enormous sum of $29,000, and I found myself in business. So had my first gym for about 6 years. Was able to build that up, make it a profitable business, sock some money aside, and went on to buy into a Gold's Gym franchise back in the early 90s. And that, at the time, was an awesome time to be a Gold's Gym owner. And it was a Wild West show, but it was a Wild West show in the best way possible. And then from that evolved into, which is another 30 to 60 minute discussion, but got involved in a partnership with 4 other Gold's Gyms. So we had 4 partners, 5 Gold's Gyms, ended up selling 3 of our 5 gyms to New York Sports Club, Town Sport International at the time. And although it was never my intention to sell as quickly as I did, but it was the right thing to do. Got out, took some money, took some time off, and got back into the business, working as a consultant, investing in some other fitness-related businesses, getting into personal training studios, other gyms. Got involved for a while initially through a consulting agreement, but then turned into a partnership agreement with some tennis clubs, believe it or not. So multi-sport and tennis, summer camps, the whole 9 yards. Most recently have done a couple of did a kickboxing franchise operation, which I had for just under 5 years. And my wife and I recently sold that. And I had went back to my roots and opened a real hardcore gym going back about 2009. And unfortunately had to close that down about 2 years ago, just because I had, they're redeveloping the property and couldn't accommodate me any longer, given what they were doing with the property, was unable to find another location for it. So I've done consulting work. I've done management contracts. I've helped other people open clubs. I've unfortunately sometimes had to help people close down clubs. And that's kind of it. I got into it out of passion, and over the years learned the business side of it, and have been grateful to be able to help other people get into the business as well.
I'm curious, John, because, when you started in the industry, I would imagine, because I've talked to other people who, have been in the industry for a long time too. When you start talking about, hey, I'm going to make a living in the fitness industry, back then that was kind of a crazy thing, right? Yeah.
People looked at you like you were out of your mind. At the time I decided to do my first gym, I was actually working for Weider Publications, Joe Weider. I was the Eastern advertising manager for Muscle and Fitness, Flex, and Men's Fitness. And I remember sitting down with the vice president of publishing him to give him my 2 weeks notice. And he sat there for 45 minutes telling me I was out of my mind to leave the job I had and go do something like that. And I stood my ground. I was making good money. I was working in New York City in advertising. It was the 80s. You couldn't really go wrong. Right. But I had it in my head I was going to get into the fitness business. And I did it. And it was tough. It was really tough. I remember days initially, weeks, months with that first gym, because it had less than 100 members when I purchased it. It was, just under 4,000 square feet, like 3,600 and change. Just all weightlifting, obviously. And I would lay for hours sometimes, take the portable phone, lay on a bench with the phone on my chest, just waiting for the phone to ring, and there'd be nobody in there. And I'd lay there thinking to myself, and Marty was the gentleman with the vice president of publishing with Weider. And his words would be echoing in my ears as I'm laying there on the bench with not a single person in my gym working out. And I'm thinking, wow, maybe he was right. Maybe this wasn't the right move. But it all turned out great, and when the people do come through the door and, your passion, my passion as an owner would come through and, you start creating those relationships, I realized I was going in the right direction. But it was definitely, it was tough. It was a tough first couple of years for sure.
Let's talk about that moment. I think it's powerful, lying on your back, because anyone who's owned a gym or, even just been a trainer with very few clients, you sit there and number one, you probably have a huge amount of overhead, right? That you're dealing with, that you got to crack a big nut, right?
Yeah. Relatively speaking, for that, yeah, it was.
So what self-talk goes on in your mind when you're sitting on that floor, and what snaps you out of it, and what gets you into action? Or what do you think, what's your advice for somebody who may be going through that point in time right now?
Is to keep in mind that you're in a business and you have to think of it that way. So, you've got to, sometimes we're in an emotional business. We're dealing with people and emotions and people that are coming to us for help. But sometimes you have to remove yourself from that, remove yourself from what you view to be negative circumstances surrounding you at the time, which is the fact that, you're not bringing the money in you need to bring in, and really stop and think objectively about what you need to do to drive business in through your doors. And look at yourself and make sure that you're being clear with who you are and what you're offering. Because if you're not clear, it's going to be very hard to attract people. When people come in, if they make an inquiry, if they walk through your door, if they pick up the phone, if they, they contact you through social media, whatever it is, if there's not clarity to the message that you're putting out, it's going to be very difficult for people to identify with you and connect with you. So you need to first and foremost make sure that you understand who you are and what you're offering, what services you're offering, what your what your area of expertise is, how you differentiate yourself, what's your niche within the market. And you better make sure that you're passionate about whatever it is you're doing. Because if you're not passionate, the people are going to pick up on that in a second. There's sometimes you can get by on, look, everybody now, especially with social media, is, a fitness expert, or, everybody that's got a great body, can put themselves up there as the expert trainer. But the reality is, unless you can connect with people and unless you can give them clarity, you're going to have a very difficult time building a business and retaining clients and customers and building for the future.
That's a really good point. I'm curious too, when we talk about finding your niche. I mean, I think now, January 2018 is probably the greatest opportunity for people to develop, some kind of fitness revenue stream online, which means that we now have a global market. So finding the niche is you really got to start getting specific, into doing it. I mean, if you want to work with somebody, if your niche is men, over the age of 50 who are 50 pounds overweight, who have 3 dogs and live in New York, and, not saying you're overweight or anything like that. That was a totally random. You can find those people now online.
Yeah,
right? You can
absolutely.
Find people and build that following and build that clientele. When you're helping people, maybe you could walk us through an example when you're helping people find their niche, because I think it's difficult, because at first you just want to help everybody, right, in the fitness industry, and then you realize, well, maybe I'm good with this, but then I'm kind of good with this. So how do you help people find their niche?
In terms of the business owner finding their niche,
yes.
A lot of times for me when I'm working with somebody is sitting down and basically interviewing them, having a conversation with them, getting them to talk about themselves and finding out, where their passion truly lies. Sometimes, and I had this discussion with you earlier, Eric, was, there's people that I've actually talked out of going into business because they didn't have that kind of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the clarity. They didn't have the capital necessary. They didn't have the passion for it. Whatever it was, it's like, you know what, you need to walk away from this because it's not going to work. And sometimes saying that would be enough to get them going in the right direction, though, too. Sometimes it takes that little, kick in the butt to make somebody realize, oh, yeah, I'm not really focused enough, and they will step it up. But, you really, it's like whether you self-interview or whether you sit down with pad and paper, do the, whatever you want to call it, your mission statement, your purpose, your why, and figure that out and be realistic about it. And, once you've done that, then you can start to kind of build your business. And look, there may be a franchise opportunity out there that fits what you want to do. There may not be. There may be something that you have to build on your own, but you need to explore all those different possibilities. You need to do homework. When I got into it 30 years ago, there was a lot of room to make a lot of mistakes and still succeed because there wasn't a lot of competition. So I was able to get that first gym and really kind of muddle through it for the first year, like figure out, advertising and marketing. I had done advertising and marketing as a representative working with agencies and everything else for a publishing company, but I hadn't had to do my own advertising. So I kind of had to figure out how to build my own brand, how to convey my message of who I was to the public and build that brand and that image. So I attracted the right people, and I was able to do that. Luckily, well, I'm going to say luckily, I got to pat myself on the back to a degree because I knew who I was, and I understand that I wanted, as frightening as it was, I wanted more people like me there, which to some people was terrifying at that time, but it worked. So, and you need to do that same thing for yourself. You need to be able to understand who you are, figure out what your brand is. Who are you in the market? So, and back to what I was saying before, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, 20, even 10 years ago, you could make some mistakes and still make it. Today, you need to be so dialed in from day one. If you want to make your living at this, if this isn't just going to be a hobby for you, if you want to make a living, you need to understand who you are and who you're trying to attract. And you need to be able to ramp it up pretty quickly because, whether you're doing an online business, whether you're doing something that's a brick and mortar, whatever it is, there's going to be costs associated with making that business successful that if you don't get it right, you're going to lose a lot of money relatively quickly. Because, doing the right thing online, even like, whatever form of market, whether you're going to pay for, Facebook ads or or whatever, or building the right website and doing whatever, hiring somebody to help you manage your website and manage your social media, whatever you're going to do, there's an expense attached to all of that to do it properly. So you got to be dialed in from day one. You could spend tens of thousands of dollars that way just as quickly as you could spend tens of thousands of dollars with a brick and mortar operation.
Yeah. And it's such an excellent point. I mean, for what we do, for Fitness Marketing Alliance and our consulting, which you do a lot of consulting too, half of our time is spent like, okay, let's bring it back. Like, who's your ideal client? Let's just keep coming back to that over and over and over again, because the day of the generalist, and maybe you disagree, maybe you don't, I don't know, but it seems to be over. Like, if you just open a gym and say, hey, we do weightlifting, right?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to be that. Look, I wouldn't want to be, and I've said this to other people before, I would not want to be the Gold's Gym that I was, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Being the big box, the 25, 30,000 square foot facility. Back in the 90s, my BOE for that gym was $75,000 a month to put the key in the door.
Wow. To
pay my rent, my base payroll, my utilities, everything else. That's what I knew I had to generate every month just to cover my expenses.
Wow.
Yeah. And thankfully, I did better than that, but that's a big weight hanging over you. And even with a smaller business now, I mean, because of rent rates, because of what utilities cost, probably the only thing that actually has decreased in terms of your operational expenses are marketing, because social media has been, what I think of what I used to spend on print advertising and cable, and then sometimes trying local radio. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I could spend thousands of dollars in Facebook and get a much higher rate of return than I ever got from print advertising now. The CPMs, if anybody knows what that is, but the cost per million when it comes to what you're spending in advertising is so much less now than it used to be. So there's some really highly efficient ways to target people that are out there. And you need to educate yourself on that. And if you're not going to do it, you need to get yourself somebody that knows how to do it well and help you portray your image well. So yeah, there's not a lot of room to make mistakes now as opposed to 25, 30 years ago. And the types of facilities that people are opening are completely different as well.
Yeah, I can't agree more. My first career out of college was I sold radio advertising. So
nice. You were one of those guys.
Yeah, I was grinding it out. Man, I made no money. I lived in San Francisco. My first year in radio sales, I think I made $24,000. I had so many parking tickets that I got the boot on my car.
Oh man.
In that first year. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pay it. So I just opened another credit card, but here I am today. I lived. But seeing the budgets for radio, my dad was a dentist. He used radio advertising.
Yep.
And now, we're in the weeds, from a digital marketing agency. We're a full stack agency. And I can tell you, we have to educate ourselves every day on what's changing. I mean, between the Facebook algorithm, this is, today's January 30th, 2018 or 31st. And the Facebook algorithm just changed and just everyone's campaigns. Google just made an announcement that site speed's, one of their most important ranking factors. So really you have to either be, if you're going to market your business, you got to be on top of things because it's changing so fast. I mean, we talked about the pace of change. Where else do you see the pace of change with technology and everything like that affecting the fitness industry? I
think there's an enormous amount of online training that's taking place. Mm-hmm. And I come from, just because, and it's not the only thing I do, but it's an area where, and it's an area I love, but I see in the powerlifting world, all the online coaches for powerlifters. My last gym, I had a number of guys that were nationally and internationally top 10 in the country or in the world in their weight classes. They were coaching people, but they were also hiring coaches. And the coaches they were hiring was nobody local, because if you're going to be a competitor and you want to get coached by the best, chances are they're not going to live 5 miles away. They're going to live 500 or 5,000 miles away. So that's who you're going to. And the same thing could hold true for anybody now, because if there's nobody locally, if there's not a trainer that you feel that you connect with locally in your gym, why not go online and find somebody like you see their branding and their marketing, like, wow, that's what I'm looking for. That gets me motivated. You can connect with them and they can help you. So that was inconceivable even 15 years ago. it's like the difference between driving a Model T and shooting a rocket to the moon. So, that's really where we've come in a very short period of time. I mean, now somebody that's 25 years old doesn't see that, but somebody that's in their 50s sees it.
Right.
And, it's so cool to me. Like I realize, I'm not the guy that's going to do my social media on my next place. I'm going to hire somebody in their 20s to do it for me. I'm going to tell them what I want and what I want to see, but I'm going to allow them to, kind of figure it out what the best way to present it is. Because I'm not going to figure out the hashtags. I'm not going to figure out, the best, I know like the times that it should, I know some of the back end technical aspects of it, but, I'm not the guy that's going to, sit there and figure out all the content and everything, because, it's going to be, I'm going to be attracting other 50 somethings.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. And I was actually interviewed on another podcast recently, and we started getting into this topic of, what's going to happen with online coaching, because, I just sold my gym not too long ago, and I was already seeing the infiltration of online coaching with my clients, right? Is people that were your clients, and now they're following someone's, program online, and they just want to, essentially use your gym as a commodity. And I wonder, where do you see that going between, what happens with the in-person trainer when, for example, if I'm a woman who just had a baby, I can easily find a trainer who specializes just like that and who's been through exactly what I've been through with, when I'm thinking about my body image, where my problem areas are, so they can find someone that they can easily relate to that's so much in their niche. Now, Joe, the fitness pro who owns the gym, is kind of screwed, right? I mean, what advice do you have for people in that situation? Where do you see that going?
As a gym owner, you're saying?
Yeah.
Like what is the gym owner? I mean, there you go. You need to have your niche locally. You can't open a gym in a market that doesn't have anything to do with that market. You need to know the market you're opening in. So, and unfortunately, if your passion is powerlifting and you're going into, I'll use an example here nearby me, you're going into Scarsdale, New York, which is an extremely affluent upscale area, you're not going to get a lot of powerlifters.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a hard time making it as a powerlifting gym. Yeah. So you need to, you either got to go to the market where there's a market for what you want to do, or you need to figure out where the niche is within your market, and that's the facility you need to open. Because once again, going back to, you're not going to open the big box that's going to appeal to everybody, because the cost of doing that and the rate of return on it, especially with all the low dollar players now, which have completely, changed the way people view what they should be paying for a gym membership. And so you have that you have the low dollar players on one end, then you have the lifetime fitnesses on the other end. In my market, we have Equinox, we have Lifetime, so we have high-end players, we have Planet Fitnesses, we have Retro Fitnesses, we have 24 hours opening up, coming into the markets now. We have LA Fitnesses. So, you've got the whole, do you really want to open up next to one of those guys and try to go head-to-head with them to try to appeal to the mass market? Absolutely not.
No.
So, yeah, no. It's like, you're insane. You're insane.
Yeah.
Because even if their clubs aren't, if they're the big corporate national owned, like the LAs and the 24s, or a New York sports club in this market, in our markets here, if they open up a club in a market, they're prepared. They've got the war chest to sweat it out for a year, 2 years, even if that club's not profitable, just to drain the life out of everybody else in the market until they attract everybody. They know it's going to take them a while to ramp up, and you can't afford, can most club owners afford to, stick it out for 18, 24, 36 months while their members go check out the shiny new toy before they realize that doesn't really fit them as much as the old gym they used to train at, and they slowly start gravitating back to you? You're going to be gone before that happens.
Right.
So once again, the market you're in, you better understand who the market is and who you're trying to appeal to. You need to understand what it's going to cost to operate your facility. You need to know what's the critical mass of members, what's your competitive market analysis? What can I charge in this market? If you got an area where the average household income is $40,000, you can't charge $150 a month. You can't go in with a CrossFit and charge $200 a month and expect to get enough of a client base to make it work. You know, you've got to be in a market where people have the disposable income to spend what it's going to cost to make your facility work in that market and to provide you with a living. So, you know, as Joe, the gym owner, Joe, the fitness, you know, personal training studio, wherever it's going to be, you've got to know the market and know whether or not that market is going to be capable. And sometimes you just got to walk away, even though you're passionate and you want to open it. Just because you want to open it doesn't mean you should.
Right. Yeah. Passion isn't enough, right? You got to know. And I think that's where the value of someone like you comes in is, you know, having a coach or a mentor or a consultant who can objectively take a step back from where you are. Because when you get in the middle of things get crazy, right? You know,
I've been there. I've been on both sides of it. I've been the passionate guy opening the gym just because I want to open it. And I'm like, oh crap. Yeah. I'm running a charitable organization. Yeah. You know, I'm paying the bills and, you know, everybody's happy, but I'm not making any money. I've done those. Yeah. You know, and it's great to hang out with all your buddies and lift, but you know, you got to make a living.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, it's a lot of great information in there. John, if people want to get in touch with you and just have a conversation, because I know you're very giving with your time, you know, if they just want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do it?
I could give an email address for, I'll just give it a Gmail address for initial contact. Mm-hmm. And then once I've screened you and make sure you're not a psychopath, then we can connect otherwise. Only kidding. So GymBuilders, GymBuilders @gmail.
Okay.
They could email me at that and say, hey, John, I got a couple questions for you. I'm looking at opening a facility. I have a facility that's, you know, up and running, but, you know, I'm running into some obstacles, you know. And look, I'm not going to have all the answers, but I do have a very good, you know, Eric, you're a great resource. You know, there's other people in the industry that I've known for decades now that are great resources. And there's people I've only known there's a lot of great young operators in the market too, in the country now that, you know, I learned from them. And so one of the things is, you know, connect with me, you know, connect with somebody like me, connect with somebody like you, Eric. You know, it helps us all to survive and prosper in the industry. So, you know, if I can't help you out, hopefully I could point you in a direction or I can get the information you need. But I think the thing is, you know, we're in an industry where what we want to do is build as much credibility for ourselves as we can, continue to, you know, have people look at us as professionals and understand that, you know, we are providing unique services that are highly beneficial to people, you know, in, you know, not just physically, but psychologically, what we can do for them. And anything we can do to help perpetuate that and move that forward, I think is a great thing. So that's part of what I like doing is being able to help other people out in the industry as well. And there's been people that have been great with me over the years. So, you know, it's always good to see people succeed. Yeah.
And pay it forward. Well, that's great. I appreciate everything that you do for the industry, and thanks for coming on, John. This was awesome. And I hope people reach out to you.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. And we'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, fitness fans. Don't leave yet. This is Eric Malzone, your host, and I have an extremely special offer just for you. If you go to fitnessmarketingalliance.com/assessment, you can claim your complimentary digital marketing audit. Are you a modern fitness professional? Do you have some sort of online presence? Do you have a sneaking suspicion that your website is not performing optimally and therefore costing you money? Well, this is how you start to find out all the details. Just like fitness, you need to start with an honest and objective assessment. So go to fitnessmarketingalliance.com/assessment, fill out the form, and we will have it to you within 72 hours. It will cover your overall site performance, rank from 0 to 100, how you rank for your chosen keywords, so that's search engine optimization, your website traffic history over the last 6 months, so the ebbs and flows and what worked, what didn't, your website speed, which is highly relevant for people coming to your website and then bouncing off because it's working too slow, your social media presence, competitive analysis, and much, much more. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, but this is the starting point for building your online business. So please take advantage of it. We're offering it because we feel it's deeply important to you and the industry overall, and you can claim it by going to fitnessmarketingalliance.com/assessment do it today. Do it right now. Don't hesitate. This offer won't last forever. So thank you for listening. Greatly appreciate it. If you ever need to reach me, hit me up, Eric at fitnessandmarketingalliance.com, and I'll be talking to you very, very soon.